If you've never played Look Outside, have played Look Outside but not Cursed Mode, or have played Cursed Mode and are wondering why such a thing as a fridge tier list exists, the answer is simple. The Cursed Mode exclusive enemy, the fridge. The fridge has a unique mechanic to it that might make such a tier list helpful, hence this quick tier list. This tier list will also give a bit of help towards allowing you to recruit Leigh faster, as in Cursed Mode, in addition to her standard recruitment requirements, she requires food to join you. Before continuing, I'd like to give a special thanks to the people involved in maintaining the Mirahaze wiki, as that's where I got the information I used to make this, in addition to my own experience playing the game. With that out of the way, let's get to the fridge. The fridge is an enemy that will randomly appear out of fridges in Cursed Mode, but only after you've opened 4 fridges. Once you've opened 4 fridges, each consecutive fridge you open increases the chance of running into the fridge. The reason you want to be careful opening fridges in Cursed Mode is because the fridge is an inescapable battle with an enemy much stronger than many early game bosses, such as Baby Teeth, the Crawling Hand, the Stargazer, and arguably even its fellow Cold Element boss, Pom Pom. As such, this tier list is designed around trying to help a player figure out what the 4 best fridges to open without encountering the fridge are. Additionally, I will tie these fridges into Leigh's recruitment as well. Truth be told, this tier list isn't all that complicated, and there is really only one truly optimal fridge you want to save for when it comes to your free 4 fridges for opening, and one you want to avoid at all costs. Before that, I want to quickly bring up Leigh. You can find this graphic on her Mirahaze page as well, but these are the meal points, so to say, you get from cooking for her. To recruit Leigh, you need to give her 10 meal points, but each day that passes increases this count by 1. Falling asleep increases this count by 1 as well. The first time you arrive home after recruiting Leigh, she will eat 6 items, so it's a good idea not to open any fridges until you recruit her so she doesn't eat too much and leave you with some stock to cook for her. She will continue to raid your fridge every time you return home, eating only 3 items after the first time, until you've managed to gain the ability to add her into your party. Every time Leigh raids your fridge, each item she eats is worth 1 point, so these cooked meals are a way of cooking some items that will heal you and reduce some of her hunger points using material she either won't steal from the fridge or she didn't raid from your fridge because you were over the max amount she will raid. Initially, you have 2 items in your fridge that she will eat, the pizza bites and the TV dinner, so that's why you won't want to get any more items for that first time when she tries to take 6 items, so she only takes 2 instead of 6. With that out of the way, let's finally get to the tier list. As I mentioned earlier, this will be pretty quick. So this is the tier list I made for the fridge tier list. The fridge tier list essentially is pretty simple. It just goes special, which there's only 1 fridge in, which I'll get to in a bit. Really good, which are the fridges I really recommend you go for of your 4 free fridges, or once you go past that, which ones you might want to take the risk in opening. The not as good ones are ones that are kind of available, but you don't really want to maybe get them unless you're ready to fight the fridge. And then you have like the tier for fridges that are so late in the game that by that point you should be able to fight the fridge just fine. And then there's finally the avoid until safe tier, which is for fridges that are just not worth opening whatsoever unless you're either trying to fight the fridge or ready to fight the fridge. There's really only 1 fridge that belongs in this tier list, in this specific tier, but I'll get to that later. So first we're going to start with the only fridge that belongs in the special tier, which is Baby Teeth. So the reason the Baby Teeth fridge, which is found in apartment 32, or the Teeth apartment, is the only one that belongs in the special tier is because the requirement to fight Baby Teeth is to open the fridge in the Tooth apartment. And Baby Teeth, as I showed in the graphic earlier, is a much, much weaker boss than the fridge. So you really want to use one of your 4 fridges on this particular fridge, because otherwise you could end up locked behind a much more powerful boss for fighting Baby Teeth, which is a boss that's only available in the early game, I believe up until day 4 if I remember correctly, but I'm probably a bit off on that. That being said, the next fridge that I would say you'd want to really open that's very good is the fridge in Jean's apartment. So the thing that makes the fridge in Jean's apartment very good is the fact that it, sorry, where are my notes on this? Jean's fridge contains instant chicken excuse me, ramen, not ramen, raw chicken, instant noodles, and the tomato can. And the reason why those items are good is, one, raw chicken is something that Leigh will eat, so that's an extra food point for her. But you can use instant noodles and tomato cans to make spaghetti, but Leigh doesn't eat those raw ingredients. So that gives you a free item, a meal that you can cook for yourself and satisfy a single one of Leigh's food points. So that's why I think Jean's apartment, personally speaking, is the best fridge in the early game that you can get, other than the baby teeth one. And to be honest, I almost wanted to put like Jean's fridge up in special, but I'm just putting it at the top of really good because it really is just that great. The next fridge that I want to go over, I'm going over in part because of the other items in the fridge, though it is a bit difficult to get in the early game, and that's the fridge in Helen's apartment, apartment 18. So the thing about Helen's apartment's fridge is that it's pretty difficult to get to in the early game because the enemies there are quite strong, especially if Sam's the only person in your party. If you are going to go into her apartment in the early game with just Sam, I recommend equipping him with the mop, because the mop has cleansing sweep, which does acid damage and is very effective against the plant-based enemies in that apartment. But Helen's apartment contains 5 feeding points for Leigh, because it contains 2 TV dinners and 3 porks. In addition to that, there's also a raw beef on the table. So by entering Helen's apartment and getting those items, you're essentially getting 6 food points for Leigh right off the bat, and that's pretty huge. It's kind of difficult to get into it, but just doing that in Jean's apartment, along with the 2 initial items you get in the beginning of the game if you don't cook the TV dinner and pizza bites, will let you recruit Leigh on day 1. So all in all, like, in my opinion, like, these are definitely the best 3 fridges, you know, in the game to open for. The next fridge I want to mention that's also really good is the Rat Baby apartment. This one's a bit easier to get to than the one in Helen's apartment. The thing that's kind of tricky about it is just the fact that you know, you have to fight a couple of rats in the early game, and while rats are weak, if you have like 5 of them gang up on Sam and he's the only one in your party, that can be difficult. And that actually brings me back to another point about Helen's apartment that's really good. Helen's apartment gives you bread and 2 tomato cans, so you can make a tomato sandwich and you can give that to Ernest, and then Ernest will join you in your party, which could make it easier to get the fridge in the rat apartment. You know, the rat apartment being the apartment with the rat child. The last fridge that I want to mention, even though it takes a bit of time to get to it, though it's a very good fridge still, is the fridge in the landlord's apartment. So the landlord's apartment has 2 fridges, but which is one in the war zone and one in his apartment itself. And the one in his apartment itself has a lot of items in it. I think it's the most of any fridge in the game, because it has 6 items, I believe, and it has 2 beef, 2 fish, and eggs. So beef is the best meat in the game, meat and potatoes being the best item that you can cook if you're able to get it. But, you know, for whatever reason you haven't recruited Leigh with the items you get from these 4 apartments, the landlords will help you. The landlord's items are a bit better than the items in the rat apartment or in Helen's apartment if you don't want to take the risk in going into there, because it's pretty tough. So these are really like the key apartments that I would really recommend you go to get items. The next apartments I'm going to mention, now we're getting into like the not as good tier, but some of them can still be pretty helpful. The first one I'm going to mention is Vincent. Vincent is pretty easy to get to. His apartment only gives bread, beef, and eggs, and bread and eggs lets you cook a sandwich for Ernest, but it's kind of RNG if you get this apartment without feeding Leigh, because she could eat the eggs, and then I don't think you can't cook beef and bread to make a sandwich. But, you know, this apartment gives you a sandwich for Ernest if you want in the early game. It gives you beef, you know, which is really good if you get something like the food trader. You know, so it's pretty helpful. The next fridge, and not as good as the one in the taxidermy apartment. It takes a while for the taxidermy apartment to open, and in all honesty, you might be able to argue that the taxidermy apartment, with how long it takes to open, you'd be able to fight the fridge by this point. But the taxidermy apartment fridge gives you 2 raw chicken, stew, and noodles. Those are all really helpful food items. Then there's Edwin's apartment, which is, the Stargazer apartment. The fridge in that apartment is also pretty decent. It gives you tomato, stew, rice, and beans, and those are items that Leigh doesn't like eat, but it lets you make rice and beans, and I think you can cook tomato and beans or tomato and stew to make some meals that I believe Leigh can eat as well. Just checking quickly. Yeah, like you can make bean stew, baked beans. Yeah, I think that's about it. From those items at Edwin's apartment, like if you wanted to feed Leigh, getting into that. So next up, after Edwin's apartment, is Sophie's apartment. This is, very random when you might get access to it because it requires you getting Sophie at the door and Harriet. But the items that she has in her apartment are pretty good. You get 2 eggs, bread, and rice. All of those are pretty decent items to get. After that, you have the arthropod apartment. The arthropod apartment, the main appeal to it is that it gives you 2 potatoes, and if you have beef, like I said, beef and potatoes is the best meal in the game. If you don't have beef, you save up for any of the other places in the game where you could get it, and you just cook those together at some point when you need it, and it's just really good. So I wasn't able to really find a sprite for Maurice, but Maurice is found in the basement. He's the conjoined guy altogether. In his apartment, his fridge gives you 5 items: noodles, beans, and bread. That's just, pretty good if you're trying to save up. But like I said, you're probably gonna have opened these few fridges before you get there because it's in the basement. You can open Maurice's fridge before you fight Antoine, and Antoine is pretty tough. Next, you have Pierre's apartment. Pierre's apartment also opens kinda late, but the items he gives pizza bites and pizza and 2 TV dinners. TV dinners really aren't that great because they don't raise your cooking skills, but pizza can be a pretty good item to cook because it goes into your inventory and you can keep it around for a while. And then next there's Eugene. Eugene's fridge is probably a fridge you're never gonna open unless you decide for whatever reason to kill him or by endgame, but since you can do it pretty early and he gives you the only other gun in the game in cursed mode, or I should say only other pistol in the game in cursed mode if you don't buy Leigh's pistol, that's something that's like worth noting. That's why I kind of put it up here. His apartment gives stew, eggs, and beans. So this one's really just here because killing Eugene comes with whatever more negatives in my opinion than positives, but it comes with whatever happens, and then you get the gun and all that stuff. So next up really is just the apartments that where when you get to these fridges, you should be able to beat the fridge by this point. And these are really just I'm just gonna do it really quickly. These are just all fridges. Let's see, it's the Dan typewriter, Mutt, the one in the sewer, and this is the secret apartment. For spoiler reasons, I'm not gonna say, but if you know, you know. All of these fridges except for the secret apartment you can only really access after, and the sewer apartment. These 3 you can only access after beating the elevator thing, and if you can beat the elevator thing you can fight the fridge. For this one, this is the sewer fridge. If you can beat Antoine, you can probably beat the fridge. Antoine's a pretty tough boss, and I don't think most people are gonna go for the secret fridge pretty early on. I was supposed to put, Antoine's fridge I put up here. I'm sorry that I missed it. So Antoine's fridge, I believe, Antoine's fridge gives you pizza and pizza bites, so that can get you a lot of leftovers and pizza you carry around with you. So then that gets to the last fridges that I have here, and I'm gonna put them like this. So there's the landlord, Pompon, and Lyle. So landlord's fridge only gives you tomato and stew. It's kind of dangerous to get to. It's not worth opening a fridge for 2 items when compared to all the other fridges above. That's the same reason that Frozen is in this apartment. Even though, you know, I was saying earlier that Pom Pom is probably easier to beat than the fridge. The Frozen apartment also only just gives you porks and beans, so it's not good. And then lastly, there's Lyle's apartment. So Lyle's fridge is the worst fridge in the game. It really should be in its own tier, but I didn't see the need to make a separate tier for avoid until safe when it kind of gets the same point across. So Lyle's apartment just gives leftovers and rotted leftovers, and that's like the worst thing that you could get from any fridge. And the problem with Lyle's fridge is that it shows up super early in the game, so you essentially have this access to this really crappy early game fridge that people might just open without thinking about it. So don't open Lyle's fridge until you've beaten the fridge enemy. Avoid it at all cost. Anyway, that's my tier list on what fridges are the best, in my opinion. You definitely want to save one for baby teeth, and then for the first other 4 that you could get, it's really, in my opinion, a matter of picking between these 4, maybe Vincent's as well. Because when it comes to that opening that initial 5th fridge, I think the percent chance that you run into the fridge is about like 10%, but it never hurts to be more safe than sorry. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this time. Thanks for your time, everyone, and I hope you have a great day.